You know what's rarely talked about when we speak of success? Not luck, not talent, not even hard work, but something quieter, something more deliberate, something called planning. Planning isn't exciting. It doesn't make headlines. It's not dramatic or glamorous. But behind every breakthrough, every triumph, every life that looks lucky from the outside, there was a plan, a vision, a map, and someone who had the courage to draw it before the road even existed. We live in a world that celebrates spontaneity, improvisation, and going with the flow. And sure, there's beauty in flexibility, but there's also danger in drifting. Because without a direction, every current feels right. And that's how people wake up one day completely lost. Planning is not about controlling life. It's about preparing for it. It's about stepping into your power before the chaos begins. It's about designing your days so that they build the future you actually want, not the one that's handed to you. Think of any structure that stands tall today: a skyscraper, a bridge, a cathedral. It didn't begin with bricks. It began with blueprints. The builders didn't wing it. They planned every beam, every angle, every bolt, because when the foundation is weak, no amount of decoration can save the collapse. The same is true for life. If you don't have a plan, you will spend your energy reacting instead of creating. You will become excellent at surviving instead of evolving. And slowly, without realizing, you'll begin living someone else's dream. The company's dream, the culture's dream, your family's dream, because you never had the courage to draw your own. But here's the truth. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a 10-year strategy. You just need to start asking yourself the questions that matter. Where do I want to be? Who do I want to become? What would a day look like if it actually honored my future? That's where planning begins, not with answers, but with awareness. And when you start to plan your life with intention, your time, your energy, your goals, you begin to notice something. You become calmer, more focused, less reactive. You stop panicking about the future because you're finally building it. This isn't just about calendars or to-do lists. This is about becoming the architect of your own destiny. Because when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Not because you're lazy, but because life will always find a way to fill your time with someone else's priorities. So today, this is your beginning. Not of another random day, but of a deliberate one. One where you choose to stop wandering, one where you pick up the pen, the blueprint, the brush, and start designing a life that feels like your own. Because if you don't design it, no one will. And you deserve more than survival. You deserve to live by design, not by default. There's a moment in every life where things feel scattered. You wake up with good intentions, but the day pulls you in 10 directions. Notifications, deadlines, people asking, expecting, demanding. And before you know it, the sun sets and you wonder, what did I even do today? That's not laziness. That's not failure. That's what happens when life becomes reactive instead of intentional. And the only thing that transforms chaos into clarity is a plan. Your mind, as powerful as it is, was not built to store every thought, decision, and responsibility. When you try to juggle it all in your head, you drown in pressure. You forget what matters. You lose the thread of your own priorities because you're too busy holding the threads of everything else. Planning clears that fog. It offloads the weight. It says, hey brain, you don't have to remember everything. Here's what matters. Here's where we're going. Here's the next step. And something incredible happens when you do that. Your anxiety goes down. Your confidence goes up. Because clarity is power. Think of your day like a battlefield. If you show up without a strategy, you're already losing. But if you walk in with a clear plan, even if it changes, you're not panicking. You're adjusting. You're leading. You're not reacting to life. You're directing it. It's the same reason pilots file flight plans. Doctors follow treatment plans. Architects rely on building plans. Because when it matters, You don't improvise. You prepare. And your life? It matters. Planning isn't about rigidity. It's about freedom. Freedom from decision fatigue. Freedom from mental clutter. Freedom to focus on what truly matters instead of what's screaming the loudest. Have you ever noticed how the most successful people seem calm, focused? It's not because they have fewer problems. It's because they've already made the most important decisions in advance. They know what they're aiming for. They don't wake up and wonder what to do. They wake up and execute. That kind of clarity is available to you. Not when you find the perfect planner or download the right app, but when you pause and decide that your day deserves direction. You don't need to fill every hour. You don't need to schedule every breath. But when you take even 10 minutes to plan your priorities, your energy, your focus, you shift from survival to strategy. And every great story, every great invention, every great transformation started the same way, with someone who was willing to pause, think, and plan. Because clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what matters most, on purpose. There's a kind of confidence that doesn't come from compliments, achievements, or applause. It doesn't shout. It doesn't boast. It doesn't need to. It's quiet, steady, unshakable. And it comes from knowing you have a plan. When most people feel overwhelmed, it's not because their life is too full. It's because their direction is too vague. They don't know what matters, what's next, or even where they're headed. So they question everything, their choices, their pace, their value. And that's how self-doubt slowly creeps in. But when you plan, when you pause long enough to say, this is what I want, this is where I'm going, and this is how I'll take the next step, something shifts inside you. You stop spinning. You stop comparing. You stop needing external validation because your internal compass is finally turned on. Let's get real. Life will always be uncertain. The unexpected will happen. You can't plan every twist, every storm. But when you have a plan, you're not afraid of the weather. You have a boat. You have oars. You have direction. You might adjust the sails, but you won't lose the horizon. This is the invisible confidence that planning builds. It's not about being right all the time. It's about being ready, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. When you have a plan, setbacks don't destroy you. They just delay you. You don't say, I failed. You say, I'll try a new route. Without a plan, every mistake feels like the end. With a plan, it just becomes a lesson. And let's not forget, planning isn't just about productivity. It's about identity. When you plan your life, you're making a statement. You're saying, I matter. My time matters. My dreams matter. You're no longer just reacting to what the world gives you. You're actively shaping what you want to receive. That's where real confidence is born, not from what happens to you, but from what you're doing about it. Even 5 minutes of planning your morning can change the tone of your whole day. Even 1 hour of planning your goals can transform your next 6 months. It's not the length of the plan. It's the intention behind it. You are not here to wander. You are here to create, to design, to lead your own life with clarity and quiet power. Because nothing feels better than waking up, looking at your plan, and thinking, I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. And I'm ready. Some people hear the word planning and instantly shut down. They picture color-coded calendars, rigid routines, no space to breathe or live spontaneously. It sounds boring, restrictive, robotic. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Planning isn't about rules. It's about freedom. The most spontaneous people in the world, the adventurers, the creatives, the dreamers, even they rely on a plan. Why? Because planning gives you structure, and structure gives you options. Without it, you're not free. You're just lost. Imagine you want to travel the world. You pack your bags and head to the airport, but you don't buy a ticket. You don't check your passport. You don't look at the flight schedule. You just go. That's not freedom. That's chaos. Planning is what makes your freedom possible. It's the difference between stress and peace, between wandering and building. It's what turns a fantasy into a future. You see, when you don't plan, your time gets stolen by distractions, by other people's priorities, by emergencies that could have been prevented. But when you plan, you reclaim your time. You take control. You say, this is what I choose to give my energy to today. And that choice, that agency, is where peace begins. Let's take a look at your goals. Big ones. Maybe you want to get fit, start a business, learn a language, write a book. Beautiful. But here's the catch. Without a plan, those dreams remain dreams. They float. They inspire you, but they never change you. When you sit down and break those dreams into steps, assign them to days, give them deadlines, space, structure, suddenly the impossible becomes practical. The abstract becomes real. The someday becomes today. That's where freedom lives, not in wishful thinking, in action, in direction. You don't need to plan your life by the hour. You just need a rhythm, a blueprint, a map, something that keeps you moving forward when motivation runs out. Because it will run out. Motivation is emotional. Planning is structural. And structure doesn't care how you feel. It just supports you. That's why artists have writing schedules. That's why athletes have training plans. That's why CEOs plan their quarters. Not to be boring, but to be brilliant, because they understand planning isn't the enemy of creativity. It's the engine of it. So the next time you hesitate to plan because it feels dull, ask yourself, what feels better? Staring at a blank day and hoping something good happens, or stepping into your life with intention and purpose, knowing you designed this moment. That's the real magic of planning, and it's just getting started. We've all done it. Put off making a plan, told ourselves we'll figure it out later, let the day unfold on its own. And deep down, we know the truth. Not planning doesn't feel freeing. It feels stressful. But if planning is so powerful, so liberating, so essential, why do so many people resist it? The answer isn't laziness. It's fear. Yes, fear. The kind that wears 1,000 masks. Fear of failure, fear of commitment, fear of pressure, fear that if we make a plan and it doesn't work, we'll feel like we failed, not just at the task, but at life. So what do? We stay vague. We say, I'll do it when I feel ready. But readiness never comes because clarity doesn't come from waiting. It comes from deciding. You see, when you make a plan, you're doing something brave. You're putting your hopes on paper. You're saying, this is what I want. This is what I will do. And that declaration, it can be terrifying because now it's real. Now you have to face resistance. Now you have to show up. And showing up is hard. But here's the secret most people never learn. The fear doesn't go away by avoiding planning. It grows. Avoidance gives your fear power. Action takes it back. When you sit down and plan your day, even just a few bullet points, your brain starts to calm down. You're no longer juggling 10 thoughts at once. You're not wondering where to begin. You're grounded. You're clear. You're choosing. And choosing? That's where self-respect begins. Because when you plan, you're not just organizing your day. You're honoring your life. You're telling yourself, my time matters. My dreams matter. I don't need to wait for the perfect moment. I create it. And yes, the plan won't always go perfectly. Sometimes things will fall apart. That's okay. Plans are meant to bend, not break. You think of your plan as a compass, not a prison. It's there to guide you, not trap you. The more you plan, the more you train your brain to trust yourself, to believe that you are capable of taking action even when life is messy, especially when life is messy. And soon, What used to feel scary starts to feel safe. Planning becomes your calm, your anchor, your silent superpower. So the next time fear whispers, "What if you fail?" you'll smile and reply, "What if I succeed because I dared to plan?" Have you ever had one of those days where everything felt out of control? Messages piling up, tasks everywhere, mind racing. You feel behind before the day even begins. That's not just a bad day. That's the weight of chaos. And chaos doesn't just steal your time. It steals your confidence. But here's where planning changes everything. Because when life feels like a storm, planning is your shelter. Think about it. When you have a plan, even a simple one, your brain doesn't have to panic. You don't have to constantly ask, "What do I do next?" You already know. And that knowing? That's power. Planning gives your brain something it craves more than anything: clarity. Clarity reduces anxiety. It removes guesswork. It stops you from jumping between tasks and ending the day feeling like you ran a marathon, but never moved forward. And here's something even more powerful. When you plan your time, you take back your identity. You stop being a reactor, always responding to what others throw at you, and you become a creator, someone who designs their life instead of surviving it. It doesn't take a perfect system. It doesn't take expensive apps. It just takes the decision to slow down, look ahead, and ask yourself, what matters today? What needs my energy? And once you answer that, something shifts. You walk different. You speak different. You move through the day with a quiet confidence, not because everything is easy, but because you're not lost anymore. Even if things go wrong, you know how to adjust. You know what matters most. You stop reacting to every distraction. You start protecting your time like it's gold, because it is. And little by little, you begin to notice something beautiful. You're finishing tasks faster, not because you're rushing, but because you're focused. You're feeling lighter, not because life got easier, but because your mind isn't carrying 1,000 open tabs. And most of all, you're starting to trust yourself again. That's the gift of planning. It's not just about schedules. It's about becoming someone who honors their priorities, protects their energy, and walks into the world with purpose. You stop asking, "How will I get through the day?" and start saying, "I know where I'm going." And that belief? That's confidence. True, earned confidence. The kind that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Everyone has dreams. Some are quiet. Some are loud. Some we whisper only to ourselves in the dark when no one's around to judge or laugh. But here's the brutal truth. Most dreams never see the light of day. Not because people didn't want them, but because they never planned for them. A dream without a plan is just a wish. It floats. It fades. And eventually, it hurts because it reminds you of what could have been. That's why planning matters so deeply. Because planning is how you tell the world, "I'm not just dreaming. I'm doing." The gap between who you are and who you want to be is filled with one thing: consistent action. And action starts with a plan. When you sit down and say, "What can I do today that moves me closer, even if it's small, even if it's slow?" You're building something. You're building momentum. And momentum changes lives. Let's say your dream is to write a book. It's overwhelming, right? 100 pages, maybe 200. Where do you even begin? But if you plan to write just 1 page a day, in 3 months you have a draft. If you want to start a business, it's scary. But if you plan to research for 30 minutes every evening, if you reach out to one person a week, if you slowly build, within a year you're not just thinking anymore. You're doing. Planning shrinks fear. It takes the impossible and breaks it down into manageable steps. Without a plan, you stare at the mountain. With a plan, you start walking. And here's the magic part. The more you act on your plan, the more your brain starts to believe, "I can actually do this." Confidence grows not from achievement, but from progress. Every checkbox you tick, every step you complete, that's fuel. That's evidence. Suddenly, you're not waiting for motivation. You're not needing permission. You're just moving. And that movement builds identity. You go from I want to I am. And guess what? The people around you will notice. Because most people only talk. But the few who plan, who act, who keep showing up, those are the ones who rise. So if you've got a dream that scares you, good. It means it's real. Now give it a plan. Give it structure. Give it time. And watch what happens. This is how dreams stop being distant. This is how they become daily. You could have the most brilliant plan in the world, a schedule that aligns with your purpose, a list of goals that excites your soul. But none of it matters if you can't protect your focus. Distraction is the silent killer of success. It doesn't scream. It doesn't warn. It sneaks in, one notification, one scroll, one unplanned conversation at a time. And it pulls your energy away from the life you're trying to build. Planning isn't just about creating the path. It's about guarding it. Because every time you let the world interrupt your flow, you're giving away your power. And eventually, the thing you are building, that dream, that transformation, that new version of you, begins to dissolve. Let's be honest. The modern world is not built for deep work. It's built for noise. It's designed to keep you reactive, scrolling, checking, clicking, comparing, reacting to everyone else's life while yours is waiting. That's why you need to create boundaries around your plan like a sacred space, a time block where the outside world doesn't get to enter. No messages, no multitasking, no drama. You wake up, you check your plan, and you say to yourself, "This hour is mine. This time is for my future." You don't need to work for 12 hours straight. You just need focus time. Even 45 minutes where you give your goal everything. No leaks, no noise, just presence. Because presence is rare now, and it's powerful. When you train your brain to focus, something amazing happens. You begin to trust yourself more. You stop saying, "I'll try," and start saying, "I'll finish." You stop needing to be reminded or motivated. You start moving from a place of discipline, and that's a different level. It's also where you stop seeking validation because your worth stops depending on likes, comments, or approval. It starts coming from results, from progress, from knowing, I said I would, and I did. And that identity shift, that's where confidence becomes unshakable. So yes, planning is powerful, but it only works if you protect it. And protection means learning to say no. No to unnecessary calls. No to scrolling first thing in the morning. No to the endless distractions that steal your destiny one click at a time. Because every time you say no to something small, you're saying yes to something big. Your focus, your purpose, your peace. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be intentional. And that starts with choosing what matters and protecting it like your future depends on it, because it does. Most people think planning is just about tasks, checklists, calendars, time blocks. But that's not the real magic. The real transformation isn't in the paper. It's in your mind. Because every time you plan and actually follow through, you're doing something far more important than completing a task. You're changing your identity. You're sending a signal to yourself. I'm someone who takes life seriously. I don't wait for things to happen. I make them happen. And when that message is repeated day after day, plan after plan, your brain begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just dreams or wishes. You start seeing yourself as someone who builds, someone who grows, someone who shows up no matter what. This shift is everything because identity drives behavior. Once you believe deep in your bones, I am a disciplined person. I am focused. I am consistent. Then your actions begin to align naturally. You don't need to force yourself to do the work. It becomes part of who you are. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loud ones, but the solid ones. The ones who radiate quiet confidence, who seem to have direction, who don't waste their energy chasing approval or comparing themselves to others. Do you know why? Because they've planned their lives and followed through. And that follow through rewired their sense of self. Planning teaches you how to trust yourself again. It repairs the broken relationship between your goals and your actions. For years, maybe you've said things like, "I'll start tomorrow," or "One day I'll get serious." And every time you didn't, a little part of your confidence cracked. But when you make a plan, even a small one, and keep it, it starts to heal. You tell yourself, "I'll study English for 30 minutes today." And you do it. You write it down. You show up. You complete it. That's a win. And that win, no matter how small, plants a seed. I am someone who finishes things. Then tomorrow, it's easier. And the day after that, you build momentum. And one day you look up and realize you've become the person you used to admire. Not because you had more time, not because you were lucky, but because you made a plan, you stuck to it, and you refused to give up on yourself. And isn't that the real goal? To live a life where you respect your own word, where you don't break promises to yourself, where you show up not for praise, but because that's just who you are now. This is the power of planning, not just changing what you do, but changing who you are. We live in a world that glorifies being busy. Hustle, grind, fill every hour, check every box. But let's pause for a moment and ask something deeper. Busy for what? Productive for what? Because if your plans don't have purpose behind them, real, personal, soul-level purpose, then they're just noise. You don't need a longer to-do list. You need a reason to wake up that excites you. That's where intentional planning begins. It's not about fitting more into your day. It's about aligning what you do with who you want to become. Most people plan reactively. They plan what they have to do. Wake up, check email, go to work, get groceries. But those tasks, while necessary, aren't what give your life power. The people who rise, who glow with direction and certainty, are those who start their day asking, "What matters to me? What moves me toward the life I truly want?" That's a different kind of question, and it leads to a different kind of plan. Instead of just work on project, it becomes take one step toward building the business I dream of. Instead of go to gym, it becomes honor my body because I want to feel alive, strong, and proud. Purpose transforms tasks into rituals. It turns planning from a burden into a gift. Imagine this. Two people both wake up at 6 a.m. One groans, checks their phone, rushes to work, and repeats yesterday. The other. They take a breath, open their journal, write down 3 goals, not just to get more done, but to get closer to their vision. That second person isn't just planning a day. They're designing a destiny. That's the energy you want. And it's not about being perfect or always knowing the answers. It's about asking better questions. Each night, ask, did I move closer to the life I believe in today? If not, adjust. If yes, keep going. And when your plans are rooted in purpose, discipline becomes easier. You don't need to constantly force yourself to stay on track. The track itself becomes meaningful. You're not just running to run. You're running towards something. It might be freedom. It might be impact. It might be health, love, or legacy. But whatever it is, your plan becomes a bridge. And every day you walk across it, you strengthen your belief that you can create the life you imagine. So the next time you sit down to plan your day or your week, don't just ask, what do I need to do? Ask this instead. What kind of life am I building? And how does this step bring me closer? Because when your planning is powered by purpose, you stop chasing time. You start owning it. Let's be honest. The hardest part of planning isn't writing it down. It's sticking to it. Because the moment you create a plan, life seems to throw everything it can to pull you away from it. Notifications, emails, drama, doubt, and worst of all, Your own mind whispering, just scroll for 5 minutes. But here's a truth you need to carry with you like armor. Distraction is not harmless. Every time you let it win, you're trading your vision for momentary comfort. And those trades, made daily, silently steal your future. So, what do powerful people do differently? They build systems to protect their plans because they know that willpower is not enough. You might feel strong in the morning, but by the afternoon, your brain is tired. And when you're tired, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. That's why preparation is everything. If you plan to write, block out time and silence notifications. If you plan to read, put your phone in another room. If you plan to rest, protect that time like you would a doctor's appointment. Because if you don't respect your plan, no one else will. There's no need to be perfect. Life will interrupt. But what separates the focused from the frustrated is the ability to return to the plan, to say, okay, that moment got away from me, but I'm coming back now. Think of it like driving. If you take a wrong turn, you don't give up on the destination. You reroute. You keep going. Planning is the same. There's no shame in slipping, only in staying lost. And here's a deeper layer. Many distractions are not just digital. They're emotional. Doubt, fear, guilt, procrastination. Sometimes scrolling is not about boredom. It's about avoiding the discomfort of growth. Facing a hard task means facing your own limits, and that's scary. But every time you sit down, feel the resistance, and do it anyway, you train your mind. You build a habit of returning. And eventually, returning becomes natural. You become someone who doesn't get derailed easily, someone who doesn't panic when things go off schedule, someone who knows how to recover, reset, and move forward with grace. That's the real power behind planning, not just control, but resilience. A calm, quiet resilience that says, I know what matters. I won't let this moment steal that from me. So today, ask yourself, what distractions do I keep allowing? What systems can I build to protect my vision? Where can I create more space, not just in my schedule, but in my mind? Because the more protected your focus is, the more powerful your days become. Something powerful begins to happen when you commit to a plan, not just once, but again and again. You begin to notice a subtle shift inside you. It's not loud. It's not dramatic, but it's real. You begin to feel like a different person, someone who follows through, someone who finishes, someone who no longer waits for life to happen because they make it happen. That shift? That's identity changing. See, most people wait to feel motivated before they act. But powerful people understand that identity isn't built by emotion. It's built by execution. It's built when you follow your plan even when you don't feel like it. Because every time you do what you said you would, your brain gets the message. I'm someone who keeps promises, not just to others, but to yourself. And that is the foundation of self-respect. You start to walk taller, speak with more clarity. You stop second-guessing every move, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Let's say you're someone who struggled with procrastination. You've always believed you're lazy or scattered. But now you start waking up and following a small morning plan. You stretch, you journal, you focus. After a week, it feels new. After a month, it feels normal. And after 3 months, it feels like you. That's not just a habit anymore. That's a new identity. Planning gives you structure, but the real gold? It gives you evidence. Because your mind will believe whatever you feed it consistently. And if you feed it excuses, chaos, and broken promises, it will reflect that in your self-image. But if you feed it direction, discipline, and proof of progress, it starts to believe in you. That's how planning changes people. It moves you from being a thinker to a doer, from being passive to being proactive, from wishing to becoming. And here's the best part. This change doesn't just affect your goals, it spills into every corner of your life. You communicate better. You start setting boundaries. You become the kind of person who respects time, both yours and others. People notice your energy shift. They start trusting you more. Opportunities start to come, not because of luck, but because you've become visible to the world as someone dependable. This is how leaders are born, not through loud speeches or perfect plans, but through consistent, quiet alignment between what they say and what they do. So if you've ever felt lost in who you are, start here. Create a simple plan. Show up for it daily. Let each action carve a new path in your mind, and watch your story begin to change. You're not stuck. You're just waiting to believe again. And your plan? That's the proof your brain needs. There's a myth about planning that holds a lot of people back. It's the belief that if your plan isn't perfect, it's worthless. That if something goes wrong, if you miss a step, if life interrupts, the whole plan falls apart. But here's the truth. Powerful planning isn't rigid. It's resilient. Because life is unpredictable. Distractions happen. Emergencies come up. Energy changes. And if your success depends on the world being perfectly still, you'll break every time something moves. That's why the best planners don't just design their days. They design for the unexpected. They build in space. They plan with compassion. They understand that setbacks aren't signs of failure. They're signs of being human. Let's say you plan to wake up at 6 a.m. and write for an hour. But one day you oversleep. Maybe you didn't go to bed on time. Maybe you just needed the rest. A rigid mindset would say, the day is ruined. Why even bother now? But a flexible mindset? It says, okay, I missed my morning window. Can I do 30 minutes after lunch? Can I shift instead of quit? That shift in thinking, from perfection to progress, is everything. It teaches your mind that your value isn't in sticking to every detail. It's in your ability to adapt without giving up. That's real strength. Think of it like sailing. You set a course, but if the wind changes, you adjust the sails. You don't abandon the journey. You redirect. And that's what flexible planning is. It's the art of staying focused on the destination even when the path has to curve. Here's what this looks like in real life. You're a parent juggling work, home, and your goals. You plan your week carefully, but your child gets sick. Your energy drops. Your to-do list collapses. In that moment, do you beat yourself up for not being productive? Or do you give yourself grace, adjust your goals, and say, this week is about care, and that's okay? See, the strongest plans are not the ones written in stone. They're the ones written in love. Love for your growth, love for your humanity, love for the process, not just the result. Because if planning becomes a prison, it fails. But if it becomes a partner, it frees you. You start to move through life with more ease. You stop punishing yourself for being real. You start trusting that even if today didn't go as planned, tomorrow is a fresh canvas. That flexibility is what keeps your momentum alive. It turns setbacks into strategy. It turns failures into fuel. So don't chase the perfect plan. Build a plan that bends with you, a plan that allows you to be disciplined and human. Because that's the kind of plan that actually works long term. Have you ever felt that invisible weight in your chest when you're overwhelmed? That quiet anxiety that sneaks up on you when everything feels disorganized, when your goals blur into each other and your mind keeps racing but never landing? That's not laziness. That's not a lack of motivation. That's a sign of emotional exhaustion. And planning, real thoughtful planning, can become the medicine. You see, planning isn't just about time. It's about emotional clarity. It's about giving your nervous system permission to relax because now, finally, someone is in charge. You think about it. Every undone task, every open loop, every forgotten promise becomes a whisper in your brain. Don't forget me. What about that thing? You're falling behind. That's why even on your days off, you still feel tired. Because your brain is trying to carry everything at once. But when you plan, when you gently empty your mind onto paper, sort your thoughts, and give each one a home, your brain breathes. Your emotions settle. The chaos gets a name. And suddenly, you're no longer lost inside your own life. You're leading it. This is especially powerful when you're dealing with fear. Let's say you've been wanting to start a new project, a podcast, a business, a book. But every time you try, the fear kicks in. Where do I even start? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? That fear isn't just doubt. It's confusion. The brain interprets, I don't know what to do next, as danger. And planning breaks that fear. When you break a big goal into small, doable steps, something magical happens. The monster in your head becomes a checklist. And checklists? They don't scare you. They empower you. You say, okay, today I'll brainstorm names. Tomorrow I'll look at options. Friday I'll take one small action. And now? Now you're moving. Now you're not afraid. You're focused. Even your self-worth begins to change because every time you follow through on a plan, even a tiny one, you send a signal to your subconscious. I can trust myself. And that trust builds self-respect. That respect builds emotional stability. And that stability becomes your foundation even in storms. This is why people who plan with heart, not just structure, often feel more peaceful, more clear, more proud of themselves. Not for what they accomplished, but for how they showed up. Planning is one of the most underestimated mental health tools in the world. Not because it solves all your problems, but because it gives you structure to hold yourself with strength when problems appear. So the next time your mind feels heavy, don't just scroll. Don't just escape. Sit down, light a candle, open a notebook, and gently, patiently lay your thoughts down like bricks. Build your clarity. Create your emotional foundation. That's what real self-care looks like. And now, take a breath. You made it to the end of this journey, not just through words, but through yourself. Because this wasn't just about planning. It was about choosing to take control, choosing to stop drifting, choosing to become the kind of person who doesn't just dream but designs. If you ever feel lost again, if the chaos starts creeping in, if the days blur together, if your heart feels too heavy to move, remember this moment. You were here. You listened. You felt something shift inside. That's not nothing. That's your comeback beginning. Planning isn't about perfection. It's about direction. It's about giving yourself a map when the world feels like a storm. And now you have it. You have the map. You have the tools. But more importantly, you have you. A you that's willing, a you that's awake, a you that's ready. So from today forward, don't just let life happen to you. Happen to life. Sit down, make the list, break it down, start small, move forward, again and again, quietly, boldly, fearlessly. And if this message gave you clarity, hope, or just a little push, I'm honored. Because this space, it's not just about motivation. It's about transformation. It's about building a life that finally feels like yours. If you're ready to walk this path together, subscribe. Join this growing family of dreamers, doers, and quiet warriors. And don't forget, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. You've got this. Native Explorer believes in you. Now go build the life that's been waiting for you all along. Step by step, plan by plan, brick by brick. Until next time, take care and take action.